Picture this. You're sitting at the most elegant wedding reception you've ever attended. The Fairmont Royal York in Toronto. We're talking crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths that probably cost more than your rent, and enough flowers to make a florist weep with joy. 150 guests dressed to the nines, champagne flowing like water, and the kind of atmosphere where you whisper instead of talk, because everything feels so perfect. You're watching this beautiful moment unfold. The bride, Madison, looks like she stepped out of a magazine, designer dress, diamond tiara that catches the light just right, and that radiant glow that new brides have. Her new husband, Trevor, is beaming beside her, looking proud as punch in his tailored tuxedo. And there, sitting at table 7, is Trevor's mom, Eleanor. Now, Eleanor isn't what you'd call flashy. She's wearing a modest navy dress, probably from Target, if we're being honest, and her only jewelry is a simple wedding band from her late husband. Her gray hair is neatly styled in a way that screams, "I did this myself at home," and she's got this gentle smile on her face as she watches her son cut the cake. She looks like every sweet grandmother you've ever met. The kind who bakes cookies for the neighbors and volunteers at the library on weekends. But here's where the fairy tale takes a turn that'll make your stomach drop. You're sipping your champagne, maybe chatting with the person next to you about how beautiful the ceremony was, when suddenly, crack. The sound cuts through the ballroom like a gunshot. Everyone's head whips around to table 7, and what you see will haunt you for the rest of your life. Madison, still in that pristine wedding dress, is standing over Eleanor with her hand still raised from the slap. Eleanor's wine glass has exploded across the white tablecloth, red wine spreading like blood across the fabric. Eleanor's head is turned to the side, and you can see the bright red handprint forming on her cheek. Her glasses have been knocked clean off her face and are lying broken on the floor. The entire ballroom goes dead silent. 150 people holding their breath, forks frozen halfway to their mouths, conversations dying mid-sentence. The only sound is the soft tinkling of glass shards hitting the marble floor. And then Madison opens her mouth, and what comes out of it will make you question everything you thought you knew about human decency. "Give me those house keys right now," she screams, her voice echoing off the ballroom walls. "You selfish old woman. You're wasting a perfectly good house on just yourself when Trevor and I need somewhere to start our lives." You watch Eleanor slowly turn her face back toward her new daughter-in-law, and you can see something die in her eyes. Not just the shock of being slapped, no, something deeper. The last shred of hope that this girl might actually care about her. But Madison isn't done. Oh no, she's just getting started. "Look at you," she continues, gesturing wildly at Eleanor's modest dress. "Sitting there in your thrift store clothes, driving that ancient Honda, working part-time at some dusty library like you're 25. You're 72 years old. You should be in a retirement home where you belong, not hoarding a 4-bedroom house that could give us the space we deserve." You look around the room, expecting someone, anyone, to step in, to defend this elderly woman who just got publicly humiliated at what should have been a celebration of love. But everyone just sits there, staring, like they're watching a car crash in slow motion. And where's Trevor in all this? The son. The man who came from Eleanor's body, who she raised, who she loved unconditionally for 31 years. He's standing right there next to his bride, and you know what he does? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He doesn't tell Madison to stop. He doesn't help his mother up. He doesn't even look at her. He just stands there like a statue, staring at his shoes while his wife destroys his mother in front of everyone they know. You can hear the whisper starting now. Did that really just happen? Should someone call someone? I can't believe she hit her. But nobody moves. Nobody acts. They all just sit there, clutching their champagne glasses, glad it's not happening to them. Eleanor slowly bends down to pick up her broken glasses, her hands shaking so badly she can barely hold the pieces. You want to run over there, to help her, to tell Madison where she can shove her demands. But you're frozen too, just like everyone else, watching this train wreck unfold. As Eleanor finally gets back to her feet, wine dripping from her dress, glass crunching under her sensible shoes, you see something change in her face. The hurt is still there, God, the hurt is written all over her, but there's something else creeping in. something that looks almost calculating. She wipes a trickle of blood from her lip where Madison's ring cut her, and for just a split second, you catch her looking at her son with an expression you've never seen before. Not angry exactly. Not even disappointed. It's like she's seeing him clearly for the very first time in her life. "Madison," Eleanor says quietly, her voice so calm it's almost eerie after all that screaming. "I think you're going to regret asking for those keys." Madison laughs, actually laughs, throwing her head back like Eleanor just told the funniest joke in the world. "What's an old woman like you going to do to me? Call the police? Good luck explaining why your son's wife had to put you in your place." But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. As Eleanor carefully places her broken glasses in her purse and straightens her wine-stained dress, there's something in her eyes that suggests Madison has no idea what she just unleashed. Something that says this sweet, quiet librarian grandmother might not be exactly what she appears to be. Something that whispers, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Now, imagine being slapped by your own daughter-in-law in front of 150 guests and no one, not even your own child, defends you. If this story already makes your heart ache, why haven't you subscribed to Stories from Jovie yet? If you refuse, at least tell me in the comments why you wouldn't support a story this raw. Because what happens next is going to change everything you think you know about revenge, family, and the power of a woman who's finally had enough. But let me take you back to where this nightmare actually began, because trust me, that slap didn't come out of nowhere. This poison had been building for too long, agonizing years. You need to understand what Eleanor went through to get to that ballroom moment, because no mother deserves what happened to her, and you're about to see exactly how a sweet woman gets pushed past her breaking point. Picture this. It's a rainy Vancouver afternoon, 2 years before that wedding disaster. Eleanor is in her cozy little kitchen, the one with the faded floral wallpaper she put up when Trevor was just a kid, making her famous chocolate chip cookies because her son is bringing his new girlfriend over for the first time. She's nervous but excited, you know? The way moms get when they want to make a good impression. Eleanor has spent the whole morning cleaning her modest 3-bedroom home. It's not fancy, built in 1962, original hardwood floors that creak a little, furniture that's seen better days, but still has plenty of love left in it. The kind of home that screams family lived here rather than interior designer masterpiece. She's got fresh flowers from her garden on the dining table and that smell of cookies baking that makes any house feel like home. When the doorbell rings, Eleanor practically bounces to answer it. She opens the door with this huge smile, ready to embrace the woman who's captured her son's heart, and there stands Madison. Now, Madison steps into Eleanor's home, and the first thing she does, and I mean the very first thing, is look around like she just walked into a condemned building. She's wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than Eleanor makes in a month, carrying a purse you could buy a car with, and she's got this expression on her face like someone just served her expired milk. "Oh," Madison says, and you can hear the disappointment dripping from that one little word. "This is quaint." Eleanor's smile falters just a bit, but she pushes through because she's determined to love this girl. "Welcome to our home, dear. I've made cookies, Trevor's favorites, since he was little." Madison walks into the living room like she's navigating a minefield, carefully avoiding touching anything. She stops in front of Eleanor's bookshelf, the one filled with romance novels, cookbooks, and photo albums, and lets out this little laugh that sounds more like a snort. "You still read actual books?" she asks, like Eleanor just admitted to traveling by horse and buggy. "Haven't you heard of Kindle? Or audiobooks? Though I guess at your age, technology might be challenging." At your age. Let that sink in for a second. Eleanor is 68 years old at this point, active, sharp, volunteering at the library 3 days a week, and this 26-year-old princess is already writing her off as some doddering old fool. But here's what really gets you. Trevor just stands there, nodding along like his girlfriend just said something profound instead of insulting his mother's intelligence. Over dinner, Madison keeps making these little comments that sound almost innocent if you're not really listening. "Eleanor, this casserole is interesting. I don't usually eat this much processed food, but I'm sure it's comfort food for you. Or it must be nice to have so much free time for hobbies like cooking now that you don't have a real career to worry about. A real career. Eleanor has been working at the Vancouver Public Library for 15 years, helping kids learn to read, organizing community programs, being a pillar of her neighborhood. But to Madison, it's not a real career, because it doesn't come with a corner office and a six-figure salary. And Trevor? He's eating it up like it's candy. Every backhanded compliment, every subtle dig, he's nodding along like Madison is speaking gospel truth. You can see Eleanor watching her son, confusion creeping into her eyes, wondering when he became someone she doesn't recognize. As the months go by, Madison's visits become a masterclass in psychological warfare. She starts bringing real estate flyers to dinner. Look at these adorable retirement communities, Eleanor. They have bingo on Wednesdays and everything. She'll flip through the glossy brochures right at Eleanor's dining table, pointing out amenities like shuffleboard courts and medication reminders like their selling points instead of reminders of mortality. Think about it, Madison says with that fake sweet voice she's perfected. You're rattling around in this big house all by yourself. Wouldn't it be nice to have people your own age to talk to? And Trevor and I could really use the space to start our lives together. Start their lives together. Like, Eleanor's life is already over at 68. The attacks on Eleanor's appearance become more frequent and more pointed. Oh, Eleanor, is that a new dress? No? Well, it looks vintage. Or, have you considered updating your hairstyle? Something more age-appropriate maybe? I know a salon that specializes in older women. Madison starts commenting on Eleanor's car, that reliable Honda Civic that's been faithfully getting her around Vancouver for 8 years. Eleanor, that car is practically an antique. It's probably not even safe anymore. What if you had an accident? Think about Trevor having to worry about his elderly mother driving around in that death trap. Elderly mother. Eleanor isn't even 70 yet, but Madison has her penciled in for the nursing home already. And the worst part? Trevor starts parroting everything Madison says. It's like watching someone you love get slowly brainwashed right in front of your eyes. Mom, Madison has a point about the house, he says one Sunday after dinner. It's a lot of space for one person. Maybe you should consider downsizing. Trevor, Eleanor says quietly, this is the house where you learned to ride a bike in the driveway. Where we had birthday parties in the backyard. Where your father and I. That's exactly the problem, Mom. You're living in the past. Madison and I are thinking about the future. Madison and I. Like they're one person now, and Eleanor is just some obstacle in their way. The final assault comes when Madison brings her parents up from Calgary for what she calls a family discussion. Picture the scene. Eleanor comes home from her library shift to find 4 people sitting in her living room like they own the place. Madison's parents, Richard and Susan, are the kind of people who measure success in dollar signs and judge character by credit scores. Eleanor, Richard announces without even saying hello, we need to talk about your living situation. Your living situation. In her own house. Susan jumps in with charts and spreadsheets, actual printed spreadsheets, showing Eleanor how much money she's wasting on property taxes, utilities, and maintenance for a house too big for her needs. A woman your age shouldn't have to worry about home repairs, Susan says like she's doing Eleanor a favor. What happens when you fall and break a hip? Who's going to take care of this place then? Madison sits there with her arms crossed, nodding at everything her parents say, while Trevor hovers by the window looking uncomfortable, but saying nothing to defend his mother. We've already looked at several lovely assisted living facilities, Richard continues, pulling out more brochures. Some of them even have libraries. You could volunteer there instead of traveling all the way downtown every day. They have it all figured out, you see. Eleanor's entire future mapped out in bullet points and pie charts. Sell the house, split the money with Trevor for fairness, move into a facility where someone else makes all the decisions. And through this entire ambush, because that's what it is, an ambush in her own living room, Trevor says maybe 10 words total. He won't look at his mother. Won't acknowledge that these strangers are planning her life like she's incompetent to make her own choices. Eleanor sits there listening to these people dissect her existence like she's not even in the room, and you can see something breaking inside her. Not just her heart, though that's shattering too, but something deeper. Her faith in the idea that family means protection, that love means loyalty. That night, after they all leave, Eleanor sits alone in her kitchen, surrounded by the ghosts of 1,000 family dinners, and wonders how she raised a son who could stand by while strangers plot to strip her of everything she's worked for. Would you let your own child stand by while strangers plan to strip you of your dignity? If not, then hit subscribe to Stories from Jovie, because silence here means you're okay with betrayal. And if you won't subscribe, I dare you to explain in the comments why you'd stay silent. But here's what none of them knew as they sat in Eleanor's living room that night, carving up her life like vultures fighting over roadkill. Here's the secret that would make Madison's jaw hit the floor and Trevor question everything he thought he knew about his mother. Eleanor Mitchell wasn't just some broke old librarian living paycheck to paycheck in a rundown house. She was worth more money than all of them combined. You see, while Madison was busy sneering at Eleanor's Target dresses and 8-year-old Honda Civic, she was looking at one of the most successful silent investors in Vancouver. While Trevor was nodding along to conversations about his poor elderly mother, who needed to be managed like a child, he was talking about a woman who could buy and sell his entire future without blinking an eye. Let me paint you the real picture of Eleanor Mitchell. That night, after the Calgary Vultures flew home and Trevor slunk out like a guilty dog, Eleanor sits in her kitchen until 3 in the morning. But she's not crying into her coffee like you might expect. She's making a list. And the first name on that list is Marcus Rodriguez. Marcus has been Eleanor's financial advisor for 22 years, ever since her husband David died, and left her with what everyone assumed was just a modest life insurance policy. What they didn't know was that David had been quietly building an empire, and Eleanor had spent the last 2 decades turning his solid foundation into something that would make Wall Street executives weep with envy. The next morning, Eleanor drives that supposedly worthless Honda Civic downtown to Marcus's office in one of Vancouver's gleaming financial towers. She's wearing another one of those Target outfits that Madison loves to mock, carrying her sensible purse and walking with that same gentle smile she always has. Marcus greets her like the queen she actually is. "Eleanor," he says, closing his office door behind her. "I've been wondering when you'd call. I saw the market reports this morning. Your tech portfolio alone gained another $40,000 just this week. $40,000 in 1 week." While Madison was lecturing Eleanor about wasting money on property taxes, Eleanor settles into the leather chair across from Marcus's desk, a chair she helped pay for through her investment in his firm's expansion 3 years ago, and gets straight to business. "Marcus, I need you to gather everything. Every document, every statement, every proof of ownership. It's time." Marcus raises an eyebrow. In 22 years of managing Eleanor's wealth, he's never seen that look in her eyes. It's not anger exactly, but something colder. More final. "Everything?" he asks. "The rental properties? The stock portfolios? The trust funds?" "Everything," Eleanor confirms. "And Marcus?" "I need it all compiled into a folder that even a greedy little princess can understand." While Marcus works his magic with spreadsheets and legal documents, Eleanor has another stop to make. She drives across town to a neighborhood that would make Madison's designer heart sing, the kind of place where houses sell for millions and every lawn looks like it belongs in a magazine. She pulls up to a gorgeous Tudor-style home with a perfectly manicured garden and lets herself in with her own key. Because Eleanor doesn't just live in that modest 3-bedroom house in her comfortable neighborhood. She owns this place too. And the condo downtown. And the beach house on Vancouver Island that she's never even mentioned to Trevor. Eleanor walks through rooms decorated by actual interior designers, past art that she bought not because it matched her couch, but because she liked the way it made her feel. She opens a safe hidden behind a painting that cost more than Trevor's annual salary, and pulls out documents that would change everything. Meanwhile, back in her modest neighborhood, her neighbor Ruth is having the morning of her life. Ruth has lived next door to Eleanor for 12 years. Sweet lady loves to garden and gossip in equal measure. She's out watering her petunias when she sees a van pull up to Eleanor's house. Professional-looking guy gets out with a clipboard, measuring tape, and that focused expression contractors get when they're pricing a job. Excuse me, Ruth calls over the fence, because if there's one thing Ruth can't stand, it's not knowing what's happening on her street. Are you here to fix something for Eleanor? The man looks up from his measuring. Real estate appraisal, actually. Getting the property assessed for market value. Ruth's watering can freezes mid-pour. Eleanor is selling? But she just saw Eleanor yesterday and she seemed fine. Happy even. Certainly not like someone planning to move. Did Eleanor ask you to do this? Ruth presses, because something doesn't smell right here. No ma'am, the appraiser says, going back to his measurements. Young couple hired us. Said they're planning to buy the place from the owner. Pretty excited about it, actually. Talked about how perfect it'll be for starting their family. Ruth's blood runs cold. She's seen that young couple, Madison and Trevor. She's watched them visit Eleanor, seen the way they look at the house like they're already measuring for new furniture. And Eleanor has never, not once, mentioned selling. Ruth abandons her petunias and marches straight to her phone. Back at Marcus's office, Eleanor is reviewing a folder that would give any financial advisor heart palpitations. Page after page of assets that prove Eleanor Mitchell isn't just comfortable, she's wealthy. Genuinely, substantially, independently wealthy. Here's what that folder contains, and pay attention because this is where the story gets absolutely insane. 17 rental properties across Vancouver and Toronto. Not little apartments, but houses, condos, commercial spaces that bring in more money every month than most people make in a year. Stock portfolios worth over $2 million. Tech companies, blue-chip stocks, international investments that have been quietly growing while Eleanor pretended to worry about grocery money. 3 separate trust funds, one for charity, one for her own retirement, and one that was supposed to be for Trevor's future. Note that past tense, because after last night's family meeting, Eleanor is reconsidering that particular investment. And here's the kicker that's going to blow your mind. For the past 6 years, Eleanor has been secretly paying Trevor's bills. His student loans? Eleanor. His credit card debt from that European vacation with Madison? Eleanor. The down payment on his car, his rent when he was between jobs, even his gym membership, all Eleanor. Trevor has no idea. He thinks he's just really good at managing money, or maybe he assumes Madison's parents have been helping out. But every month, Eleanor quietly transfers money into his accounts, covering his expenses so he can live the lifestyle Madison demands without having to actually earn it. She's been bankrolling their entire relationship while listening to Madison call her a burden who needs to be managed. Marcus slides the completed folder across his desk. It's thick enough to choke a horse and detailed enough to stand up in any court in the country. Eleanor, Marcus says quietly, are you sure about this? Once this information comes out, there's no going back. Eleanor picks up the folder, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, she smiles. Really smiles. The kind of smile that would make smart people run for cover. Marcus, she says, standing up and smoothing down her target dress, my son's wife thinks I'm a doddering old fool who's wasting space. She wants my house keys so badly she's willing to slap me in front of 150 people to get them. She tucks the folder into her sensible purse, right next to her grocery coupons and reading glasses. I think it's time she learned what those keys are actually worth. Ruth's phone call catches Eleanor just as she's pulling into her driveway. Eleanor, honey, we need to talk. Someone's been measuring your house, and I think you need to know about it. Eleanor listens to Ruth's story about the appraiser, about Trevor and Madison hiring him, about their plans to buy her house and start their family in it. When Ruth finishes, there's silence on the line. Eleanor? Are you okay? I'm perfect, Ruth. Better than I've been in years. That night, Eleanor sits in her kitchen again, but this time she's not making lists or wondering where she went wrong. She's looking at a folder full of proof that she's been supporting the very people who want to strip her of her dignity, her independence, and her home. She's been secretly paying their bills, and yet they slapped her for her house keys. If you think that's injustice, don't just watch, subscribe to Stories from Jovie so this message spreads. If you don't, at least tell me in the comments why betrayal doesn't move you. Now remember, we left Eleanor standing in that ballroom, wine dripping from her dress, broken glasses in her purse, with that look in her eyes that said Madison had just awakened something she really shouldn't have. What happens next is going to be the most satisfying 10 minutes of your life. Eleanor wipes that trickle of blood from her lip, looks Madison dead in the eye, and says something that makes the hair on your arms stand up. You know what, Madison? You're absolutely right. It is time for me to give up those house keys. Madison's face lights up like Christmas morning. She actually claps her hands together like a child who just got promised ice cream. Finally, some sense from the old. But Eleanor holds up one finger, and something in her expression makes Madison's celebration die mid-clap. But first, Eleanor continues, her voice carrying across that silent ballroom like she's addressing Parliament. I think there are a few things about those keys that everyone here should know. Eleanor pulls out her phone, that old iPhone that Madison always makes fun of, and dials a number. The call connects on speaker, and a professional male voice fills the ballroom. Marcus Rodriguez, Rodriguez Financial Services. Marcus, Eleanor says, never taking her eyes off Madison's face. Remember that folder we discussed? I need you to bring it to the Fairmont Royal York. The Crystal Ballroom. Right now. There's a pause on the line. Eleanor, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Eleanor hangs up and looks around the ballroom at all those frozen faces. 150 people who just watched a daughter-in-law assault an elderly woman, and not one of them moved to help. Ladies and gentlemen, Eleanor announces, her voice steady as steel, I suggest you keep your seats. What you're about to learn is going to change everything you think you know about this family. Madison's face starts to shift from triumph to confusion. What are you talking about, you crazy old bat? What folder? Trevor steps forward, finally finding his voice. Mom, what's going on? You're embarrassing Madison. Eleanor turns to look at her son, and the disappointment in her eyes could melt glaciers. Embarrassing Madison? Trevor, son, I haven't even started yet. The 15 minutes that follow are the longest 15 minutes in ballroom history. Eleanor calmly picks glass shards out of her dress, while Madison paces like a caged animal, demanding to know what Eleanor is planning. Trevor keeps trying to get his mother to be reasonable and not make a scene, apparently forgetting that his wife already made the scene when she committed assault in front of half of Vancouver. The guests whisper among themselves, but nobody leaves. How can they? This is better than any reality TV show they've ever seen. And then the ballroom doors open. Marcus Rodriguez walks in like he owns the place, and honestly, given Eleanor's investment in the hotel industry, she probably has a stake in it. He's carrying a leather briefcase that looks like it could hold state secrets, and his expression is pure business. The room goes dead silent again. Marcus walks straight to Eleanor, hands her the briefcase, and then turns to address the room like the experienced professional he is. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcus Rodriguez, and I'm Eleanor Mitchell's financial advisor. Mrs. Mitchell has asked me to share some information with you tonight that I think you'll find illuminating. Madison lets out a nervous laugh. Financial advisor? Eleanor works part-time at a library. What could she possibly need a financial advisor for? Marcus opens the briefcase and pulls out that folder, the one thick enough to choke a horse. He sets it on the head table where everyone can see it. Mrs. Mitchell, Marcus says formally, would you like me to proceed? Eleanor nods, and what happens next is going to blow your mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus begins, opening the folder. Eleanor Mitchell is the owner of 17 rental properties across Vancouver and Toronto, with a combined value of approximately $12 million. The gasps from the audience sound like air being sucked out of the room. Madison's laugh turns hysterical. That's impossible. Look at her. Look at how she lives. Marcus continues like Madison didn't even speak. Mrs. Mitchell also maintains investment portfolios worth approximately $2.3 million, including substantial holdings in technology, real estate, and international markets. Trevor's face has gone white as the tablecloth. Mom, what is he talking about? But Marcus isn't done. Not even close. Furthermore, he announces, pulling out specific documents, Mrs. Mitchell has been the sole financial supporter of her son Trevor Mitchell for the past 6 years. She has paid his student loans, totaling $47,000. His credit card debt, including a $22,000 European vacation taken last year. His car payment, rent assistance, and various other expenses totaling approximately $15,000 annually. The room explodes. Guests are gasping, whispering, pointing. Someone's phone is definitely recording this nuclear bomb of information. Madison's face cycles through disbelief, confusion, and then something that looks like she's about to vomit. That's not possible, she stammers. Trevor handles his own money. He's financially responsible. He has never made a single payment on any of these debts, Marcus interrupts, consulting his papers. Every transaction has been handled through automatic transfers from Mrs. Mitchell's accounts. Trevor looks like he's about to faint. Mom, you've been paying for everything? Eleanor finally speaks, her voice carrying over the chaos. Everything, Trevor. Your entire adult life has been subsidized by the doddering old woman your wife just slapped. But wait, because it gets so much better. Marcus pulls out another document. Mrs. Mitchell has also asked me to inform you that as of today, all financial support has been terminated. Mr. Mitchell, your lease guarantee has been canceled. Your credit cards, which were being automatically paid, have been discontinued. And the $28,000 wedding bill for this evening has been revoked. The color drains from Madison's face so fast you'd think someone pulled a plug. What did you just say? The wedding bill, Marcus repeats calmly. Mrs. Mitchell has been the guarantor for all expenses related to this event. Catering, flowers, venue, photographer, band, everything. As of right now, you are personally responsible for the full amount. Madison starts hyperventilating. Actually hyperventilating. No, that can't be right. Trevor's parents were supposed to pay for the wedding. Trevor's parent, Eleanor corrects. Singular. His father is dead, remember? And yes, I was supposed to pay for your wedding. Right up until you decided to assault me in front of everyone I know. Trevor finally finds his voice, but it comes out as a croak. Mom, please, we can fix this. Madison didn't mean to slap me? Eleanor asks. Didn't mean to demand my house keys? Didn't mean to spend 2 years trying to convince me I'm incompetent and need to be managed like a child? Madison's meltdown reaches epic proportions. This is insane. You can't do this to us. We'll sue you. We'll have you declared mentally incompetent. No court will believe. Marcus pulls out one more document, and the smile on his face could power the building. Actually, Mrs. Mitchell anticipated that reaction, which is why I've also brought her updated will. The room goes silent again, but this time it's the kind of silence that comes right before a tornado hits. As of today, Marcus announces Eleanor Mitchell's entire estate, including all properties, investments, and liquid assets, will be donated to the Canadian Elder Rights Foundation upon her death. Madison's scream could shatter windows. You can't do that. Trevor is your son. Eleanor stands up, wine stains and all, and looks at her son with more sadness than any mother should ever have to feel. Trevor was my son, she says quietly. But my son would never have stood by while someone attacked his mother. My son would never have let strangers plan my life like I'm incompetent. My son would have defended me. She looks around the ballroom at all those faces, some shocked, some horrified, some finally looking ashamed for not stepping in earlier. What I saw tonight wasn't my son. What I saw was a puppet being controlled by a greedy little girl who thinks love is measured in real estate and inheritance checks. Trevor's tears start falling, but it's too late. Way too late. Eleanor picks up her purse, broken glasses and all, and walks toward the ballroom doors. But she stops and turns back one more time. Oh, and Madison? About those house keys you wanted so badly. Madison looks up through her tears and rage, mascara running down her face like war paint. Eleanor reaches into her purse and pulls out her house keys. For a second, Madison's face lights up with hope. Then Eleanor drops them into her wine glass. When you can afford to buy a $12 million real estate empire, come talk to me about keys. And with that, Eleanor Mitchell walks out of that ballroom like the queen she always was, leaving behind the wreckage of 2 lives that chose greed over love. In front of 150 guests, the greedy couple watched their security collapse. If you stood in that ballroom, Would you have applauded for Eleanor or stayed silent? Subscribe to Stories from Jovie if you'd stand up for her. If you wouldn't, write in the comments why silence is your choice. Now, if you thought watching Eleanor drop the mic in that ballroom was satisfying, wait until you see what happened in the 72 hours after she walked out those doors. Because Madison and Trevor were about to learn that when you mess with a quiet woman who's finally had enough, the universe has a way of making you pay interest on every bit of pain you caused. Picture this. It's Monday morning, exactly 72 hours after the wedding disaster that's now being called the slap heard round Vancouver on social media. Madison wakes up in what used to be their dream apartment, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows and the view of English Bay that she loved to show off on Instagram. She stumbles to the kitchen to make coffee, still thinking maybe this is all some nightmare she can wake up from, when she sees the envelope that's been slipped under her door. Eviction notice. 30 days to vacate. Madison's hands start shaking as she reads the fine print. Lease guarantee terminated due to withdrawal of financial backing. All future rent payments must be made directly by tenant. Outstanding balance due immediately, $4,200. Her phone starts buzzing. Unknown number. Hello, this is collections calling for Trevor Mitchell regarding account number ending in 4847. Your payment of $847 is now 60 days overdue. Madison hangs up and the phone immediately starts ringing again. Different number. Same message, different debt. By noon, Madison has received 17 collection calls, 3 more eviction-related notices, and a certified letter from the Fairmont Royal York demanding immediate payment of $28,647 for wedding services rendered. $28,000. Due in full. Within 30 days. Madison's trying to process this financial apocalypse when Trevor stumbles in from his bachelor party hangover, looking like death warmed over. He takes one look at the pile of notices on their kitchen counter and his face goes green. This isn't real, he keeps muttering, flipping through bill after bill after bill. This can't be real. Mom wouldn't actually cut us off completely. She's bluffing. Madison grabs his phone and dials Eleanor's number. Straight to voicemail. She tries again. Same thing. Fine, Madison says, that familiar edge creeping back into her voice. If she wants to play games, we'll play games. But we're not going down without a fight. And that's when they hatch what has to be the most spectacularly stupid plan in the history of bad decisions. Madison starts making calls to lawyers, family court officials, anyone who will listen to her sob story about poor Trevor's elderly mother who's clearly suffering from dementia and being manipulated by predatory financial advisors. She's not competent to make these kinds of financial decisions, Madison tells anyone who will listen. One day she's this sweet old lady, the next day she's claiming to be some secret millionaire. It's obviously elder abuse. Someone's taking advantage of her confused mental state. Trevor, bless his spineless heart, goes along with it because he's desperate and because Madison has spent 2 years training him to agree with everything she says. They file papers with family court requesting a competency evaluation. They claim Eleanor is suffering from dementia, that her dramatic behavior at the wedding was evidence of mental decline, and that they need to step in to protect her from making poor financial choices. They think they're so clever. They think they've found the perfect loophole. Get Eleanor declared incompetent, take control of her finances as her concerned family, and boom, they get everything they wanted anyway. There's just one tiny problem with their brilliant plan. The internet. Remember those 150 wedding guests who sat there watching Madison slap Eleanor? Remember how everyone had their phones out because, let's be honest, who doesn't record drama when it's happening right in front of them? Well, those videos started hitting social media Sunday night, and by Tuesday morning, #JusticeForEleanor is trending across Canada. The first video to go viral shows the slap in crystal clear HD. You can see everything, Madison's face twisted with rage, Eleanor's wine glass exploding, the absolute silence of 150 people too shocked to move. The caption reads, "Entitled bride slaps elderly ML at her own wedding reception for refusing to hand over house keys." But that's just the beginning. More videos surface showing Eleanor's calm, dignified response. The moment Marcus walked in with that briefcase. Madison's complete meltdown when she learned about the $28,000 wedding bill. Eleanor dropping those keys into the wine glass with the composure of a queen. The comment sections are absolutely savage. That old lady is my new hero crown. Imagine being so greedy you assault a senior citizen at your own wedding. Eleanor said, "You want my keys? Buy your own house, skull." This woman really slapped her ML and found out she's worth $12 million. Local Vancouver news picks up the story Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday, it's gone national. CBC runs a segment called When Family Greed Goes Too Far. CTV does a deep dive into elder abuse in Canadian families. And here's where it gets really good. People start digging into Madison's social media history. Screenshots emerge of Madison mocking Eleanor's clothes, her car, her job. Posts about finally convincing Trevor that his mom needs to move to a facility. Photos of Madison and her friends touring Eleanor's house with captions like, "Can't wait to redecorate this place properly." The internet does what the internet does best. It turns Madison and Trevor into the most hated couple in Canada practically overnight. While Madison and Trevor are trying to convince family court that Eleanor is mentally incompetent, Eleanor's legal team is building a case that would make prosecutors weep with joy. Because here's what Madison forgot in all her rage and greed: assault is a crime. Slapping someone isn't just rude, it's criminal assault. And when you do it in front of 150 witnesses with multiple video recordings, proving it becomes remarkably easy. Eleanor's attorney, and yes, she has an attorney, because rich people have attorneys, files criminal charges. Assault causing bodily harm. The cut on Eleanor's lip from Madison's ring becomes Exhibit A. But they don't stop there. The legal team compiles 2 years' worth of evidence, text messages where Madison calls Eleanor deadweight and a burden. Recordings of conversations where Trevor agrees they need to manage his mother's living situation. Documentation of the real estate appraiser hired without Eleanor's knowledge. Pattern of emotional abuse. Financial exploitation attempts. Conspiracy to defraud an elderly person of her property. The family court petition claiming Eleanor is incompetent? It backfires spectacularly when Eleanor shows up to the hearing with Marcus, her attorney, and a medical evaluation from 3 separate doctors confirming she's in perfect mental health. "Your Honor," Eleanor's lawyer says, presenting the mountain of evidence, "my client isn't suffering from dementia. She's suffering from having raised a son who chose greed over love and married a woman who sees elderly people as obstacles to her own prosperity." The judge takes one look at the viral videos, reads the medical reports, and dismisses the competency petition so fast it makes headlines. But the story gets picked up by elder rights advocates across the country. Eleanor becomes the face of a movement she never asked to lead. Seniors organizations start using her story in their campaigns about family financial abuse. Speaking requests pour in from advocacy groups. Eleanor gets invited to testify before Parliament about protective legislation for elderly Canadians. The woman who just wanted to live quietly in her house, volunteer at her library, and love her son has accidentally become the most famous grandmother in Canada. And through all of this, the viral fame, the legal battles, the media interviews, Eleanor handles it with the same quiet dignity she showed in that ballroom. Meanwhile, Madison and Trevor are discovering what happens when you become internet villains. Trevor gets fired from his marketing job because his company doesn't want to be associated with someone who stood by while his wife assaulted an elderly woman. Madison's Instagram influencer aspirations die when brands start canceling partnerships faster than she can count. Their landlord, tired of dealing with the collection calls and media attention, serves them with an accelerated eviction notice. They've got 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live and no way to pay for it. The wedding venue threatens to sue for the unpaid bill. The photographer refuses to deliver their wedding photos until payment is received. Even Madison's parents, embarrassed by their daughter's viral infamy, stop returning their desperate phone calls. But here's the most beautiful part of this whole disaster. While Madison and Trevor are spiraling into financial and social ruin, Eleanor is thriving. The stress of dealing with their constant demands is gone. Her health improves. She's sleeping better than she has in years. The library where she volunteers has become a pilgrimage site for people who want to meet the grandmother who stood up to family greed. Eleanor starts getting letters from seniors across the country sharing their own stories of family members who tried to manipulate them out of their homes, their savings, their independence. She becomes their hero, their proof that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. The internet defended her when her own son wouldn't. If strangers online can rally around her, why can't you subscribe to Stories from Jovie right now? If you refuse, tell me in the comments what's holding you back. 6 months later, Eleanor Mitchell is sitting in the CBC studio in Vancouver, and let me tell you, this is not the same woman who got slapped in that ballroom. She's wearing a beautiful navy suit, not from Target this time. Her silver hair is professionally styled, and there's something in her eyes that speaks of quiet power and hard-won wisdom. Across from her sits Sarah Chin, one of CBC's most respected investigative journalists, the kind of reporter who doesn't do fluff pieces. When Sarah Chin calls you for an interview, it means your story has national significance. Mrs. Mitchell, Sarah begins, her voice carrying that professional warmth that puts guests at ease. 6 months ago, a video of you being assaulted at your son's wedding went viral across Canada. Today, you're one of the most recognizable advocates for elder rights in the country. How did we get here? Eleanor settles back in her chair, and when she speaks, her voice carries the confidence of someone who's found her purpose. Sarah, I think we got here because too many families are facing the same situation I faced. Children who see their aging parents not as people to love and respect, but as obstacles to their own financial security. What happened to me at that wedding wasn't unique, it was just caught on camera. Sarah leans forward. Let's talk about what happened to your son Trevor and daughter-in-law Madison after the legal proceedings concluded. Because the courts didn't go easy on them, did they? Eleanor's expression grows serious, but there's no satisfaction in it, no gloating. Just sadness. Trevor was fined $2,500 for being an accessory to assault and ordered to complete anger management counseling. Madison received a $5,000 fine for assault causing bodily harm, plus 200 hours of community service specifically working with elderly residents in care facilities. Sarah checks her notes. And the attempted fraud charges regarding the competency petition? Additional fines of $3,000 each, plus they're both barred from serving as anyone's power of attorney for 10 years. The court felt that their attempt to manipulate the legal system to gain control of my finances was particularly egregious. But here's where Eleanor shows the grace that's made her a hero to millions of people. She doesn't stop there. Sarah, I want to be clear about something. I don't take joy in seeing my son suffer consequences for his choices. Every mother watching this knows that watching your child face the results of their actions is heartbreaking, even when those consequences are deserved. Sarah nods, understanding. You've said publicly that your door isn't permanently closed to Trevor. Can you explain what you mean by that? Eleanor takes a deep breath, and what she says next is going to resonate with every parent watching who's ever had to love a child who's made terrible choices. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean allowing someone to take advantage of your kindness indefinitely. I love my son, I will always love my son, but love must come with boundaries. She pauses, choosing her words carefully. If Trevor comes to my door tomorrow with genuine remorse, not because he wants something from me, but because he truly understands the pain he caused, my door will open. If he comes ready to rebuild our relationship based on mutual respect rather than financial expectation, I'll welcome him home. But I will never again allow anyone, family or otherwise, to treat me as less than I am simply because I'm older. Sarah's next question hits at the heart of the national conversation Eleanor's story has sparked. Your experience has ignited discussions in Parliament about strengthening protections for elderly Canadians against financial abuse by family members. How does it feel to know that your personal trauma has become a catalyst for legislative change? Eleanor's eyes light up with something that looks like wonder, like she still can't quite believe where this journey has taken her. It's surreal, Sarah. 6 months ago, I was just Eleanor, the librarian from Vancouver who volunteers with the literacy program and tends her garden. Now I'm getting calls from MPs asking for my input on elder protection legislation. She leans forward, her voice gaining strength. But if my story can prevent even one family from going through what we went through, if it can help even one senior citizen understand that they don't have to accept being diminished by their own children, then every painful moment was worth it. Sarah pulls up her tablet. The response to your story has been overwhelming. We've received over 12,000 emails from viewers who want to share their own experiences. TikTok videos using #EleanorEnergy have been viewed over 50 million times. Instagram posts about setting boundaries with family have become a movement. Did you expect this kind of response? Eleanor laughs, and it's the first genuinely joyful sound she's made during the interview. Never in a million years. My neighbor Ruth, she's become something of a social media manager for me. Bless her heart. She shows me these TikToks of young people talking about how my story helped them stand up to family members who were trying to manipulate them financially. College students sharing how they learned to say no to relatives who wanted to borrow money they'd never pay back. She shakes her head in amazement. I've got teenagers writing to tell me I inspired them to set boundaries with parents who were financially irresponsible. The letters I get aren't just from seniors, they're from people of all ages who realize they don't have to set themselves on fire to keep other people warm. Sarah's expression turns more serious. You've become a symbol of something larger than just elder rights, haven't you? I think I've become a symbol of the radical idea that kindness doesn't require you to be a doormat, Eleanor says firmly. That love doesn't mean accepting abuse. That being family doesn't give someone the right to exploit your generosity indefinitely. Sarah shifts in her chair. Let's talk about the broader impact. The Eleanor Mitchell Foundation, which you established 3 months ago, has already helped over 300 families navigate similar situations. You've testified before Parliament twice. You've got a book deal with a major publisher. This has become your life's work, hasn't it? Eleanor nods, her expression thoughtful. It wasn't planned, Sarah, but it feels like what I was meant to do. All those years I spent helping people at the library, connecting them with resources, listening to their problems, it was preparation for this. She looks directly into the camera, addressing the audience watching at home. To anyone watching this who's being pressured by family to give up their independence, their home, their financial security, you are not selfish for wanting to maintain control over your own life. You are not obligated to impoverish yourself to enrich relatives who see you as a resource rather than a person. Sarah leans back. What would you say to Trevor and Madison if they were watching this interview? Eleanor is quiet for a long moment, and when she speaks, her voice is filled with the kind of love that comes only from someone who's learned the difference between enabling and caring. I would tell them that the door to genuine reconciliation is always open, but it requires them to walk through it as equals, not as people looking for a handout. I would tell Madison that slapping me in that ballroom was the best thing she ever did for me, because it finally showed me who she really was. And I would tell Trevor that I'm proud of the man I raised him to be and disappointed in the man he chose to become, but hopeful for the man he might still decide to be. She pauses, her voice strengthening. But mostly, I would tell them what I tell everyone. It's never too late to choose respect over greed, love over manipulation, dignity over desperation. The choice is always there. Sarah checks her notes one final time. Any final message for the millions of people across Canada who've been following your story? Eleanor looks straight into the camera with the confidence of someone who's found their voice and isn't afraid to use it. Your worth isn't determined by what you can provide to other people. Your value isn't measured by the size of your bank account or the property you own. And your love isn't proved by how much you're willing to sacrifice your own dignity to make other people comfortable. She smiles, and it's radiant. Stand up for yourself. Set boundaries. Demand respect. And remember, sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who need to hear no the loudest. 2 years later, Eleanor Mitchell is standing in the gleaming offices of the Eleanor Mitchell Foundation in downtown Vancouver, looking out at the city where her story began. But this isn't the same woman who got slapped in that ballroom, and this isn't the same life she was living when people thought she was just another struggling senior citizen. The foundation occupies an entire floor of a building that Eleanor owns, because of course she does, and it's bustling with activity. Caseworkers are on phones helping families navigate elder abuse situations. Legal advisors are reviewing documents for seniors being pressured to sell their homes. Financial counselors are teaching workshops on protecting yourself from family financial exploitation. In just 18 months, the Eleanor Mitchell Foundation has helped over 1,200 Canadian families deal with situations ranging from adult children stealing from elderly parents to relatives trying to force seniors into care facilities against their will. They've got partnerships with law enforcement, legal aid societies, and elder care organizations across the country. Eleanor walks through the office, and you can see the respect in every employee's eyes. Not because she's their boss, though she is, but because she's become living proof that it's never too late to rewrite your story completely. Mrs. Mitchell calls out Sophia Chen, yes, journalist Sarah Chen's daughter, who Eleanor met during that CBC interview and who's now the Foundation's head legal counsel. The Manitoba case we discussed? The family dropped their competency petition after we sent the documentation. Mrs. Patterson gets to keep her farm. Eleanor smiles, the kind of smile that comes from knowing your pain has become someone else's protection. Another victory for dignity over greed, she says, and there's something in her voice that carries the weight of someone who's fought this battle and won. Eleanor's inner circle these days looks nothing like the family she once had, and everything like the family she chose. There's Ruth, her neighbor, who's become her unofficial social media manager and best friend. Ruth still waters her petunias every morning, but now she also manages Eleanor's Instagram account, which has 2.3 million followers who hang on every post about boundary setting and self-respect. There's Janet Morrison, Eleanor's former colleague from the Vancouver Public Library, who now runs the Foundation's literacy and education programs. Janet helps seniors learn to recognize the warning signs of financial abuse and teaches them the legal language they need to protect themselves. And then there's Sophia, brilliant and fierce at 28, who reminds Eleanor every day that choosing your family can be more powerful than accepting the family you're born into. These three women have become Eleanor's sisters, her confidants, her proof that love doesn't require shared DNA. It just requires mutual respect and genuine care. Eleanor's health has transformed along with everything else in her life. The constant stress of walking on eggshells around Trevor and Madison, of second-guessing every decision, of wondering if maybe they were right about her being too old or too incompetent, all of that is gone. She sleeps through the night for the first time in years. Her blood pressure is normal. She's taken up hiking on weekends, joined a book club, started painting watercolors. At 74, Eleanor Mitchell is living the most authentic life she's ever lived. The memoir she's writing, tentatively titled The Keys to Freedom, A Grandmother's Guide to Taking Your Life Back, is already being called this generation's defining book about family, aging, and self-respect by her publisher. The advance alone was more than Trevor made in his last 3 years of employment combined. But here's where Eleanor shows the complexity that makes her story so compelling. She hasn't completely closed the door on family. Last month, she established an education trust fund for her 4-year-old grandson, Trevor's son. The trust will pay for college, graduate school, whatever education he chooses to pursue. But it comes with conditions that would make any lawyer proud. The money can only be accessed if the child maintains a relationship with Eleanor that's independent of his parents' influence. If he chooses, at 18, to have a relationship with his grandmother based on genuine affection rather than financial expectation. If he demonstrates respect for elderly people through volunteer work or advocacy. And here's the kicker. If Trevor or Madison try to manipulate, coerce, or coach the child in how to interact with Eleanor, the trust dissolves immediately and the money goes to the foundation. Eleanor isn't just protecting her grandson's future, she's protecting him from becoming the kind of adults his parents became. I won't let him grow up thinking love is something you buy or that family is something you exploit, Eleanor tells Sophia one afternoon as they review the trust documents. If he wants a relationship with me, it has to be real. If he doesn't, that's his choice to make when he's old enough to make it freely. Trevor and Madison, meanwhile, have become a cautionary tale that Eleanor never talks about publicly, but that everyone knows privately. They're living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Surrey, both working retail jobs, still paying off the legal fees from their spectacular failure to steal Eleanor's life. Madison's social media influencer dreams died with her reputation, and Trevor's marketing career never recovered from being that guy who let his wife assault his elderly mother. They've tried reaching out to Eleanor exactly 3 times in 2 years. Each attempt has been during a financial crisis. Each message has focused on money rather than apology, and each has been met with the same response: Eleanor's attorney forwarding information about family counseling services and communication workshops, along with a note that Eleanor remains open to genuine reconciliation, but not to continued exploitation. The last attempt came 6 months ago when their rent was being raised and they were facing eviction again. Trevor's voicemail was 47 minutes long. Eleanor timed it and spent 45 of those minutes talking about how much they needed help and only 2 minutes acknowledging that maybe, possibly, they might have handled things poorly. Eleanor listened to the entire thing, then deleted it and went back to reviewing foundation cases. As Eleanor locks up the foundation office on this particular Friday evening, she runs into Mrs. Kim from the 3rd floor, an 81-year-old Korean woman whose own children were pressuring her to sell her condo and move in with them. Eleanor, Mrs. Kim says, her English still heavily accented, but her smile universal. "I tell my son today no more. I keep my home. I use your words. My love is not for sale." Eleanor hugs the older woman, and in that moment, she understands something profound about the ripple effects of standing up for yourself. Her story didn't just change her life. It's changing the lives of people she'll never meet, in families she'll never know, in ways she'll never fully understand. That night, Eleanor sits in her kitchen, the same kitchen where she used to make cookies for Trevor, where she sat through Madison's condescending visits, where she planned her escape from 2 years of psychological warfare. But now it feels different. It feels like home again instead of a battlefield. She opens her laptop and writes the final paragraph of her memoir. "They thought they were taking my keys. They thought they were stripping me of my independence, my dignity, my right to make decisions about my own life. What they actually did was hand me the key to a life I never knew I was strong enough to live." Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the door to the best thing that could happen to you. Sometimes you have to lose the family you thought you had to find the family you actually deserve. And sometimes, at 72 years old, you discover that your real life is just beginning. Eleanor closes the laptop, looks around her quiet, peaceful kitchen, and smiles. Because here's the truth that makes this entire story worth telling: it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to demand respect. It's never too late to choose dignity over convenience, boundaries over enabling, self-respect over family peace. Eleanor Mitchell got slapped in a ballroom for her house keys, and she turned that slap into a movement, that humiliation into empowerment, that ending into a beginning. Your story isn't over either. Whatever keys someone is trying to take from you, your independence, your self-respect, your right to say no, those keys belong to you. And like Eleanor learned, sometimes you have to be willing to use them.